Well, Adam, we will get it out of the way why I'm wearing sunglasses for anyone that's watching this on YouTube. For those of you listening to the podcast, which is most of you, where it's just audio, this won't matter. But for like three people that watch our YouTube channel, the reason I'm wearing sunglasses is not because I'm trying to look like I have a Sonic sunglasses, or not trying to hide my emotions about anything. It's purely because I woke up the other day with a broken blood vessel in my eye, and my eye looks pretty gross right now. So I'm gonna spare all of you from having to see that, spare Adam from having to see that.
Stare at
So
it for the next hour and a half. I
yeah,
mean,
so
let's be honest. You've been having a string of accidents, and you might have had a run in with a goblin or two over the past couple days.
I did not even think about that. That is true because I have had some weird medical stuff recently that's like unexplained. Like I just wake up with this pain or wake up with a bloody eye. So yeah,
That's
it's got some goblin climbed up in my bed and poked me in the eye, I think.
Yep.
Yeah,
You and
it's a good
Davina are in
call.
the same boat right now. You
Good
and Davina
call.
are in the same boat.
But so that aside, we are here to talk about the Christmas special of Doctor Who, the latest episode of Doctor Who, which was a Christmas special, the first time we've gotten a Christmas special in quite a while. And I will say, I thoroughly enjoyed the fact that we had a Christmas special this year.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. It was nice to get to the end of Christmas Day because that's what I did. I got to the end of Christmas Day and it was like, you know what? I'm gonna sit down on the couch. The kids are upstairs in bed. I'm gonna watch some Doctor Who. It was a pretty good way to end the day.
Did you watch any Doctor Who Christmas specials leading up to Christmas? Because I know they show them on TV sometimes, or they're all on HBO Max if you have that. Did you watch any of them?
I really wanted to. There were definitely a few that I had top of minds. I just never got around to it. So no, I did not watch any Doctor Who specials leading into it. How
Okay.
about you?
I
Did you
did
do your typical episodes watch?
I did, yeah, I like to go and watch, like it's kind of part of the, how everybody has their Christmas movies they watch during Christmas
Yeah.
time.
Yep.
So we kind of have a few that we watch, but we also like to watch the Doctor Who Christmas specials. Not like we watch all of them, but like we'll just kind of pull up a random one.
Yeah.
Um, this year I pulled up I don't even remember the title of it, the Christmas Carol
Yeah.
one.
Yep. I mean,
Uh,
that's the one that is always top of mind when I think of the Christmas specials.
yes, that one is like hands down my favorite. I think it's just
Yep.
the best story that they've done is Matt Smith, which he's just really great in that story specifically. Um, some weirdness with the flying fish and all that stuff
Yep.
and the shark and but what
Yep.
would Doctor Who be without a little bit of weirdness?
Right.
Not and this year's Christmas special did not lack in weirdness. They might have given the flying sharks a run for their money. But yeah, that one I think is if I had to rank, which I feel like we probably did at some point in our podcast, we probably ranked some of Christmas specials, but that I think is my current favorite.
I mean, yes, easily so. I think I would be right there with you. I don't know if we've committed the cardinal sin of ranking Christmas specials for Doctor Who. I don't know if we've gone down that route, but I would say the Christmas Carol one is definitely top of the list. The one that is like just came back to me that I want to go back and watch is the Capaldi Christmas special with the dream crabs.
Oh
And
yeah,
you had the Santa Claus played by, oh, what is his name? Frost,
Nick Frost.
right? Nick Frost.
Okay.
Yes. That one I want to go back and rewatch because it was slightly disturbing if I remember correctly, but then
Yes.
very Christmassy because you had Santa Claus show up.
Yeah, that one was good. I started to watch one and I can't even I don't know that I even finished. I think my wife fell asleep and we didn't finish it, but it started out with the doctor not being able to wear clothes in because he had to go into some room and you weren't allowed to have clothes. So like he made it so it looked like he was wearing clothes from like a hologram, but
Yeah.
he actually was naked. And I had completely forgotten about this happening. And then he went to meet Clara's family and forgot that he still was naked. And so everyone else saw him as naked, but he thought he was still clothed with the hologram. Do you remember
I have
this?
like I have like the vaguest memory
I had completely
of
forgotten
that taken
about
care
that
of.
story, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know if I remembered that he basically showed himself naked to Clara's entire family." I had totally forgotten about that.
The Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe? No.
No,
Is that
it might have been the Santa Claus one. I don't
that
know.
was
I can't.
Capaldi,
Oh,
right?
you're right. You're right. No, it was Matt Smith.
The
Yeah.
Snowman? No. I know
Although
what the
maybe
Snowman is.
I will admit and say that it could possibly not even be a Christmas special. It could have been. It might have auto played into an episode. So I don't know. So listener, I'm sorry. I don't remember the title, but I'm sure if you're a big Doctor Who fan, you probably know the episode I'm talking about.
I mean, there is one that I remember where Matt Smith does the Christmas crackers with Clara's family at some point.
Yeah, and so this episode, Clara is like, they're on some spaceship. So maybe it was a town called Christmas. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I think it's that one. It's the beginning of that one, I believe. Which is the one that's Smith's regeneration episode,
Yes.
which I had lots
Yes.
to say about. So we have done a review of this episode. So we should go back. I'm gonna go back. We've now spent way too much time talking about this. I want to listen to our I want to hear our review of that part of that episode because I completely forgot that happened. All right. So on to the current
Christmas specials.
Christmas specials. That's what we're talking about. Happy New Year. But yeah, so on to the current Christmas special. Let's just get right into it. Um, this one was called The Church on Ruby Road, right? I didn't
Yes.
put it down in
Yep.
my notes. Church
Yep.
on Ruby Road. We got a Christmas special. I love the fact that we got a Christmas special. Interesting, Disney Plus had this listed as special
Number
4.
4. Yes.
Just weird to me. Like they didn't label it Christmas special. They didn't
Yep.
label it season 1 special. I don't know like what I expected, but the fact that it was just special number 4 in
Yeah.
Disney Plus's, kind of title card felt really odd to me and didn't feel like the right way to label this.
Yeah, I'm honestly, there's that whole categorization thing happening on Disney Plus right now where all the specials are listed separately, right? Like they don't have a click on Doctor Who type thing and it shows all the specials listed out. It is special 1, special 2, special 3, and special 4, completely separate. Makes it really hard to track all of them down. But yeah, this is special number 4, but you do have Gatwa's Doctor as the cover image for it.
Yeah, so a very interesting way to kind of label things. I hope they clean it up a little bit for the season when it comes out.
Yeah,
I know they've already talked about season 1, so we're getting a bit of a rebrand, or not rebrand, I don't know what you would call it. It's not really a reboot, it's kind of a bit of a refresh, maybe.
relaunch.
Relaunch,
That's
yeah. But yeah, I know they're calling it season 1. So
yeah,
so you have special 1, 2, 3, 4, and season 1 that will all be under Disney Plus.
yes.
So a little bit confusing. I hope they just get like a Doctor Who page at some point and they, kind of like you can click on the different seasons and maybe they'll have specials and then season 1. I don't know, but it is kind of weird how they're doing it right now.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And I know that we're not alone. There were a lot of people that I saw calling out the fact that it was special number 4 and not a Christmas special or anything like that when it was listed on Disney Plus.
Right. All right. So this one starts out with a voiceover from the Doctor, which I couldn't remember if that's happened before. I didn't want to just claim, oh, this is the first time this has happened because who knows? I forget a lot of
Right.
things. So it may have happened before. I know we've gotten Rose doing a voiceover at the beginning of the episode. We've gotten Amy doing voiceovers. So we've gotten the voiceover thing before, but this started out with Ncuti Gatwa right away doing this little voiceover, the scene, snowy scene with a church and a baby being dropped off. It was Christmassy, it was Doctor Who-y. I was loving like that intro, the whole thing.
Yeah.
I like it already set the right tone for me, I thought.
Yeah, I agree. We are on the same page thus far. It was a solid opening, especially for a Christmas special, especially for something that we've been anticipating for a long time. It didn't open with something that was gimmicky. It didn't open too goofy. It set a serious tone at the very beginning. Um, Church, snow, that's Christmas.
Doctor, serious voiceover, kind of
Yep.
setting some mystery.
The slow walk of the woman after dropping the baby off,
Yeah,
the teary-eyed doctor.
I like a good Doctor Who mystery. I like a good Doctor Who companion that has, and by the way, I feel completely comfortable using that term because I've heard it a million times now on like official stuff. Okay, so the term
Yes,
has not been nixed. We can still say companion.
right,
But I like a companion that has a mysterious aspect to them. We've had
right.
it before. Clara, I would say, was kind of the big one recently that had kind of a
Yep.
mysterious history, and I think they're really setting us up for Ruby to have something similar. Um, and we're being set up for Christmas specials in the future because she's born on Christmas Eve. Like,
Yeah.
so every
Yep.
year that when it's her birthday, it's it's a reason to have something cool happen. And so I think, the next couple Christmas specials, however long Ncuti Gatwa sticks around or however long she sticks around, will probably revolve around something to do with her birthday.
Yeah. And I mean, you take it with a grain of salt, right? Like there's been a lot of things coming out here recently of RTD mentioning that he has things thought out, planned out for the next 3 years, right? Like this is not something he's approaching willy-nilly, series by series, season by season. He has well thought out, defined plans. It seems like throughout this episode, there's just tease after tease after tease. And I think you are probably spot on. I feel like Christmas is going to be a focal point with Ruby, Christmas Eve, adopted birthday. Yeah, we're probably going to be coming back to, if not this day, at least this scene multiple times, or maybe the other way around. If not this scene, this day multiple times over the next couple seasons.
I do have some questions about kind of the Doctor's actions because we see the scene and we see him in the TARDIS
Yeah.
and he sees her being dropped. He sees the mother. Later on in the episode, we find out why he was there, but you're kind of like, there were some moments there where you're like, oh, shouldn't he do this?
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about that later. But we kind of so we go straight into Ruby. She's being interviewed. I have never heard of this show. Apparently, it's a thing. I thought it was just a fictional thing, but apparently, it's a real
Oh,
thing.
really?
And the host is a real person. Like it's a real host in England.
Oh, okay.
Um, that's what I had seen in some of the behind the scenes stuff. I didn't do a ton of research to like kind of look into that or how famous this woman is, but apparently she's a known host that we wouldn't know as Americans, I guess.
Nice.
Um, so she's being interviewed by this woman. She's kind of like part of a show where they're going to look into her history. I've seen shows like that before. I think they have an English version, they have an American version where it's like
Yeah.
who are you? I forget what it's called, but where they kind of look into your history. This sounds a little bit more like they're trying to help people find their
Right.
parents, from people that, what she's calling a foundling, which I thought was like a baby Yoda term.
That's I know, right? A
I didn't know
Mandalorian callback.
I didn't know that was a real term to refer to people that don't know, I guess, or people that were abandoned, maybe. I don't know, but it sounded
Yeah.
like a typical term that maybe isn't part of our vernacular. But it was kind of an interesting. You get to know her a little bit, just from the interactions there.
Yeah.
But it's also they're kind of starting to introduce the little goblins and stuff too.
Yeah. It was a really solid introduction for Ruby. I mean, you get a good sense of her personality, you get a good sense of what her backstory is, the fact that she does come from a mysterious background of not knowing who her parents were, wanting to know who they are, but yet she seems to be pretty easygoing, right? Like, yeah, there's some expectations there, but she seems to be pretty positive overall. But yeah, you have the strange voices in the background, the moving of the coffee cup. I mean, how many of us, that is the one thing that I will say, and I think you are the same about Doctor Who, where they introduce these things, it's like, oh yeah, that's just common every day, where it's like, I put this down there. Why is it now further away? Or I don't remember putting it down there. I thought I put it down closer. One of those nice little nods where it's like, yep, the goblin just moved the coffee mug. She put the coffee there. It's now an additional foot out of the way. The explanation is the goblin. How many of us haven't had moments like that?
Right. And now we know why.
Yep,
It's
those goblins.
it's coincidence that brought them to us though. That's right.
Yes.
So It's
Yep.
the language of coincidence.
The language of coincidence.
Very interesting. But yeah, you're right. They had the goblins kind of introduced there. The assistant kind of in the background trips over a cord because her coffee was moved and that makes the lights fall down and it's kind of this whole thing where we're kind of being introduced to the idea of maybe the theme or one of the themes of this episode.
The
Um
accidents that happen.
Yeah. We do get kind of a flash through the next couple days. So we see Ruby in a couple different situations. She's like part of a band, which they didn't really focus on or kind of tell us much more about that. We got introduced to at least seeing her. She's playing the keyboards like in this band. She's got a couple friends, it looks like, that are in the band with her. I don't know
Yep.
if it's like a serious thing or she just kind of in the moment was, doing a one-time gig or if she's like part of a bigger thing. Hopefully not, because then they just lost their keyboard artist.
I mean, their keyboardist is now gone.
She's just gone. But yeah, so we see her in a band, then we see her the next day at the club. We see the doctor in the first one, he's kind of in the background. He's got that. I know we've talked about his clothes before.
Yeah.
It seems like we're gonna get a lot of different clothes with this doctor. Maybe this isn't gonna be your typical kind of David Tennant, Matt Smith, Capaldi, where they have like one or two outfits.
Oh,
Like I feel like this is going to be part of this doctor's personality. Is like he
yeah.
is a fashionista. Like he is going to be wearing lots of different high fashion, kind of loud types of clothing. We've already seen maybe four different outfits just in this one episode.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say, even if the coat stayed the same, the sweater underneath changed multiple
Yeah.
times.
But he
It's
had that
and
that
then
orange. Remember we were talking about the orange
yep.
cardigan that we had seen in some of the preview images?
Yeah.
He's wearing that orange cardigan in that first scene with the hat, like almost like a cowboy hat, but not quite a cowboy hat.
It was Pharrell Williams hat,
Yeah, there you
just
go.
not quite as large.
So he is definitely not afraid to kind of be wearing some crazy, not crazy, but like just more eye-catching fashion stuff that I
Yeah,
wouldn't wear. I couldn't pull it
right.
off. But
Yeah.
he definitely can.
Gone are the dusters, the sports coats, and the unbuttoned shirt underneath it, the bow ties. I mean, maybe they'll come back, but he's not this doctor doesn't stay in a lane, right? Like it doesn't feel like he's going to be confined to a single individual style. He's going to branch out. He's going to have fun. He's going to wear whatever pleases him.
Maybe
Um,
help him fit into more situations too. Like
yeah,
because he can kind of blend in. I mean, you see him in that outfit, but then in the very next scene, they show him in that what we had seen in the trailer. He's in the club, which looks like a club, and I mean, he's out there partying. He's on the dance floor. He's wearing a kilt.
yeah,
He's
yep.
got, one of those kind of, tight tank top style t-shirts. He is out there moving. This is my take on it. Because when I saw it in the trailer, I think I probably said something to this effect when we were looking at the trailer last episode, but it was kind of like almost, I wouldn't say off-putting, but almost like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Like I've never seen the doctor like that before. But to me, it's almost like, okay, what would you and I do if suddenly given our youth back, right? Like
Right.
Ncuti Gatwa is young. Now, I don't think
Yeah.
he's as young as he looks, but he just came off a show in Sex Education where he played a teenager.
Right.
So he
Right.
looks young enough that he kind of looks like a teenager.
Yeah.
And so he's just living it up. I mean, he is enjoying his young body. He's out there just kind of living it up. And I can kind of buy into that a little bit more that now that I've had a little bit more time to kind of think about it, that we're just getting a young doctor who isn't that old soul
Right.
necessarily, like we got with Matt Smith, because Matt Smith was super young when he took the role
Right.
too.
Yep.
But he played the role almost as an old soul, whereas Shuti's like embracing the youth here.
Yeah. And I mean, you look back at the 50th anniversary episode, right? And there's that time where Tennant and Smith and the War Doctor are all locked in the dungeon or the room together.
Yeah.
And like Tennant is getting upset at Smith because Smith's doctor seems so the levity, right? Like he's just so loose and goofy and stuff like that. But then you have that switch with Smith where Smith is like he gets really dark all of a sudden. Like now we have Gatwa, and if you take the whole like conversation as far as like the trauma stays with Tennant, you have yes, he's older in age but younger in appearance, but he's laid aside all that trauma. Heck yeah, you've just been released from that burden. Of course, you're going to go live it up for a little bit. You're going to go spread your wings. You're going to twirl and enjoy yourself at the club. It seems like that's probably, and I agree, that's with what you were saying. I think that's probably what we're supposed to perceive this doctor as, right? He's regained some of that freedom that he hasn't had in a while because he's left some of that trauma behind with Tennant. He's doing the self-care, right? Out of order.
Yeah. And Ruby, it definitely catches Ruby's attention. She notices him right away. She
The
sees him on the dance floor.
confidence.
Yeah, she's like, I don't know if there's like an attraction there. I mean, there probably is an attraction, but maybe it's not like a romantic attraction more than just like
Yeah,
this is a cool person that I want to be around.
yeah,
And you get that right away, just kind of her eyes light up when she sees him. And then when he comes over to the table and starts talking to her, they have great chemistry, I think,
yeah,
right off the bat.
yeah,
Maybe some of the best chemistry I've seen with the doctor and a companion. Maybe because the ages are so close. We have kind of seen this, kind of dynamic in the past where it's like almost like older, younger. Maybe with Smith and Amy Pond, it was a little closer, but he acted older.
right.
Where in this, it's just like two kids hanging out. It feels like almost.
It felt very natural. And be that the doctor, be that the characters, Ruby and the doctor, or be it the actors portraying them,
Mhm.
it felt really natural, very smooth. It just flowed. They had really good chemistry together from that very first moment. Now there's a question as far as like, wait, you were over there and now you're right here. How did that happen? We don't have any answers for that, right? Like he literally was out on the dance floor spinning around, enjoying himself. The energy, the confidence, and all of a sudden, within the blink of an eye, he is right next to her. One of those magic moments of the Doctor, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully, you didn't use the TARDIS to do that. That feels like overkill. Uh,
He has the teleporter from yeah, he has a teleporter wristband on that
yeah.
got him
Who
over
knows
there
what his
quickly.
new cool flat Sonic can do?
Yeah,
Maybe he can teleport. But yeah, he talks to her. We have the goblins still kind of doing their thing, making her spill her drink, etc. They unplug the chords, I think, on some of the instruments or something in
yeah,
the one scene. Uh, and then we see the doctor use the psychic paper. I mean, if it's the introduction of a doctor, right? You got to have these kind of milestone moments. He's
yep,
already gotten that one out of the way. He used his psychic paper. No explanation to it. I feel like in
no.
the past we've gotten a little bit of an explanation as to what the psychic paper was. This was like, hopefully you know what it is because
See,
he just kind of showed it, and yeah, us Doctor Who fans knew what it was.
yeah, that's a really good point, right? Because I mean, I think for a while we've been thinking of this as like a reintroduction to the Doctor, or maybe an introduction to the Doctor for the first time, right? Like that's kind of what in my mind I framed this as like this would be a good introduction episode for new fans, big special on Disney Plus. You have a new Doctor, welcome everybody into the fold for the first time. But then you have something like the psychic paper, right? Where seasons past, new Doctors past, it'd be shown some explanation about it at some point. This is not that. If you have never seen Doctor Who, you probably don't know what he just did there and what he just pulled out and where gin and tonic, uh, why that even showed up on a blank piece of paper. That's a really good point. No explanation whatsoever for the audience.
Yeah. Maybe they're saving it. I can see there's a bit of a balancing act here because you want to make it accessible to new viewers, but you also don't want to like over explain for all
Right.
the old viewers that have seen it a million times. And so
Yeah.
maybe they figured this is one that they can kind of throw out there almost as a nod to us that know what it means. And for new viewers, they can look it up. Like
Yeah.
we are in the age of the internet where you can literally look up everything. And so, I could literally see people as they're watching it looking that up. What is this? Like what is the paper that the doctor shows, and something
Yeah.
like that, just to get an explanation. So
I will probably get an explanation. You know he's going to pull it out again in a
yeah,
future
down the
episode,
road, maybe
and
they'll
Ruby's going to ask about it, and he's going to have to explain what he just did.
right. We did get kind of another scene with, you know, Ruby and her friends in the car and the snowman, the goblin or this gigantic snowman that's on top of this building. Um, that the goblins are trying to like have it crash down on the car, and the
Yeah.
doctor, I guess, intervenes with the lights and allows them to move on. So apparently, in some of the behind the scene, or some of the, not necessarily behind the scenes, they didn't say this, but in some of the news reporting or about this episode was that they had added some scene or a scene to the beginning of this episode at Disney's request or at
Okay.
Disney's feedback. And I think this is what they're talking about because they were saying that the beginning of the episode initially was mostly just Ruby and you didn't get a
Okay.
lot of Doctor. And so they wanted to have a scene where it kind of introduced the Doctor better. And so I think this whole scene with the snowman, him intervening, him talking to the policeman, and all of that, from what I can gather, reading between the lines, this is the scene that was kind of added based on
Interesting.
Disney's feedback, and it was Russell T Davis that admitted to that. Um, so we did wonder if Disney was going to have any kind of
Yeah.
story, say, and I guess they have enough that the whole scene got added.
Huh. That's interesting. It didn't feel out of place
No,
necessarily.
if I wouldn't have never thought that. I didn't see that until after I had watched the episode, and then I saw
Yeah.
a couple of links from different entertainment sites saying that Disney had kind of had some feedback, and I was like, oh, okay. Now that I know it, I can kind of see why they did it. But yeah, I wouldn't have known or wouldn't have thought it was out of place.
Yeah. Interesting. I okay. No, that because I guess without those scenes, you'd have just had the doctor bursting into the apartment, right? At some point. Um, or just I guess running across the roof. That's where the
Right.
first
Yeah, that
introduction
would have
is
been
running
kind of
across the
their,
roof.
other than them meeting in the club
Right.
with, but then the next
Yeah,
time she saw him would have, or still the next time she sees him is on that ladder, but the next
true.
time the audience
True.
sees him would have also been
Yeah.
there. So I guess
Yeah.
maybe they just wanted to introduce a little bit more. It shows him use the Sonic. It shows the TARDIS. It shows him talking to the
Him
police.
and talking to the lady that was pushing the baby stroller. That I did find kind of funny where he's like, wait a second, a
What are you
pram
doing?
at midnight?
Yeah,
And she's like, it's my shopping. Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny.
it's probably what people think when I bring my son to Target with me at 10 p.m. trying to pick up milk, and they're like, "What is your kid still doing awake?"
Uh,
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting. The scene with the policeman was kind of a nice little scene. I mean, this is the kind of thing I feel like could have been dropped here, and then like at somewhere at the
yeah.
end of the season, this policeman comes back, and we see him again. It did feel, I guess that one I would say felt a little like unnecessary. You could have not had that part at all, and it wouldn't have impacted the episode.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, all it does is it's like, okay, the doctor, hyper observant, is able to tell things very quickly. It's one of those you are the cleverest one in the room type of situations. But yeah, you could probably done without that one at this
And
point.
and I think part of it too is just establishing the doctor's personality. At
Yeah.
this point, we've seen him a little bit, and we saw him at the end of obviously the David Tennant specials, but they're really establishing him and his personality really well. And I mean, I don't know a better word to describe him than just like he's cool. Like he's just really cool.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Yeah, he's very likable in a different way, because I think all the doctors from, if we're just talking modern Eccleston on, they're all likable in their own way, but there's this kind of like almost harshness to them too.
Right.
And we've only gotten a little bit of Ncuti, and maybe that comes out later. But like I'm thinking of like when Capaldi was first introduced, and he's just like
Yeah.
ripping on everybody.
He
He,
was sandpaper.
he's angry. Yeah, he's just this angry old man. This is
Yeah.
like so the opposite with Ncuti Gatwa just being like he's like the nicest guy ever, the coolest
Yeah.
guy. He's the guy that the life of the party. He's fun to be around, but he's not making you feel small. Like he kind of exudes that personality, and they're really doing a good job of establishing that pretty quickly with him.
Yeah, he seems, dare I say, human, like natural. Like he's not out of place. He's comfortable wherever he is, and he makes everybody else comfortable where they are as well. He's smooth. Like he's not, there's no friction with his character. He slides right into the apartment. He is able to talk to Cherry in the bed and like communicate, and he's smooth. He's a smooth operator. Um,
Yeah, I mean everyone likes him.
yep.
And there's not going to be, there really isn't a reason to not like him.
No.
And I think that the kind of cool thing maybe, and maybe it'll be like over too much, but I feel like Ruby's the same way. They they gravitate toward each other because they're very similar. Whereas
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
past
Yeah.
we've gotten
Yeah.
these kind of opposites attract type of thing with the doctors and companions. They're just like two friends that just like the kind of people that maybe never even knew each other. They end up in the same room and they just like magnetize to each other and become besties. That's kind of the vibe
Yeah.
I get from these two characters. And they just kind of, she's so likable too. Like you see her, she goes to her house, her mom's there. They're talking about being excited about bringing in a foster child, and they're so excited about it. Like she's fun. She's a musician. She's sacrifices her life to help other people. Like she just already has
Yeah.
been like it's almost like are we going to get to a point where like we get tired of how good they are? Like
She's
what's the
she's
downside? What's the
incredibly
negative?
yeah. Yeah, and I don't know. I think that's kind of we're gonna keep using the word. It seems very relevant right now. Like that's just the vibe with them, right? Like
There's a good vibe.
she's incredibly easygoing. Like all the accidents that happens around her, she laughs it off. Like she is one of those people that the bag of groceries is gonna rip open, all the eggs are gonna shatter on the sidewalk, and she's just gonna smile and be like, "Oh, Ruby, this always happens to you." And she's gonna go upstairs and she's just gonna go out for eggs later. Like she got terrible news towards the end of the episode, and she is apologizing to the person delivering the terrible news, right? That is just her personality. And I think right now, as a character, it's incredibly likable. Is that going to get shaken up throughout the next throughout season one? Maybe. I have a hard time seeing that though. Like, I don't think this doctor and this companion, from what we can see at this point, will experience much conflict between each other. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we need that type of doctor right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I kind of want to, I'm curious of their dark side and
Yeah.
if we will see it. I feel like we always have, maybe not with companions as much as doctors, but we definitely, with every version of the doctor, they've had their dark side, that kind of comes out. Something forces their hand. And I
Right.
kind of want to
Right.
see that with Ncuti because it's almost like he's so nice, he's so great, like that it's almost like, all right, what will make him stumble? That's what I'm curious. I hope they challenge him. I hope we do get an episode like that where he's not, everything isn't top of the world, everything isn't so easy for him to handle. Because this episode, he had his moments where he was kind of like, oh, kind of intense, like have to figure something out. But you never really felt like, he wasn't going to just do it.
Right. Yep. Yeah. I mean, he faced off against the toy maker and kept a pretty darn good attitude while he did it. So
I
we'll
keep
see what
forgetting
happens.
that we already literally got like a whole sequence with him. It's so unique because you're used to like a doctor being introduced to you and you're like, oh yeah, that's
Right.
right. We already saw him do all this stuff. But yeah, we had mentioned she lives with her mom. So she was adopted by this
Yeah.
woman, but this woman also fosters children. And she's like
Yeah.
this really just charitable, giving woman who has fostered, I think, what they say, 33 or some different kids. So
Right.
they're kind of
Yep.
setting, I mean, even she is like this really awesome person. So we're getting a lot of that type of character.
And this is where the episode, if we want to tie this like Christmas special to a common Christmas movie, this is where it takes on that Wonderful Life vibe, right? Like
Ah,
where you're like, hey, you have this character. And because she existed in the lives of so many, she has had such an impact. And look at who these people are because she's a part of them. Because later on the episode, we get the flip side. What happens when she wasn't around? What happened if Ruby never existed? And that's where that, like, in my mind, that's where you have like the Christmas specialness of this. Yeah, it takes place on Christmas, but it's also, to me, it's like a major callback to It's a Wonderful Life.
ah. See that? I'm glad you said that because that didn't even occur to me. But now that you've said it, it's like opening my brain to like, oh yeah, like I'm starting to see the things
Yeah.
uh, where I didn't even think about that connection, but absolutely it is.
Yeah. I
Uh,
mean,
Did you
She
catch when
disappears.
he runs back into the house at the end when everything has changed back
Yeah,
to find her, and he kind of puts his hand on the, what do you call that, the banister or whatever, the top of the banister of the stairwell.
yeah,
And in Wonderful Life, that's the thing that kind of always pops up. I didn't even,
yeah,
that's so,
yeah, yeah,
like, it's
yeah.
just now coming to me that I'm like, oh, that was a callback. Like,
Yeah,
it
it's a
looks so
huge,
familiar. And
right,
I was
right.
watching it trying to like place, like, why does that look so familiar? And I'm like, oh, that's why, because in It's a Wonderful Life, that's okay. All
Yeah,
right,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
cool.
Huge homage, huge homage.
Well, that's awesome because I love that movie.
I
It's wonderful.
despise it, but that's beside the fact.
Oh man, we need a whole episode about that. But yeah, so kind of moving ahead, they the baby gets taken by the goblins.
Yes.
Ruby also doesn't seem so bothered by that. Just kind of chases them down, faces off with them. They're kind of getting snippy with her. She's yelling back at them.
Yep.
They take the baby up into the ship, and she's the perfect companion, right? Because she's not freaked out by this. She goes and's like, "All right, I'm gonna jump on the ladder."
Yep.
Doctor shows up. What are you doing on the ladder? He does the what the hell, you know,
Yep.
which I'm like, is this going to just be his catchphrase? Because now we've heard it a couple times. Like, what the hell's going on? Um, so she jumps on the ladder. He gets on there with her. He's got the Mavity gloves, whatever
He's
you want to
got the
call
gravity gloves.
them. I love, love, love that is a thing. I don't know why, but now that they've
That's
introduced that, I don't want them ever to say the word gravity again in Doctor Who.
I don't think they will. I think
I
from this
love that
point
that was
forward.
introduced, and even people that like, even if you don't start watching Doctor Who till 5 seasons from now, I want you to be like, why do they say Mavity? Like I want that to just be this Easter egg that has been created in our time. Like I want that to live forever in Doctor Who. I don't know
Oh,
why I love it so much, but just it works. As soon as he said Mavity, I was like, oh my gosh, they're still doing it, and I love it.
there's some wild theories going on around right now about the whole Mavity thing
Oh,
and
really?
some of the characters that are involved with Mavity. I'm not going to get into it. The one thing I am going to mention is someone found a tweet from 2014, and who knows, it might have been disproven by now, but somebody tweeted like basically they called out Mavity in 2014 and someone found it, has retweeted it, and the person's like, "Hey, Doctor Who fans, I'm so glad this has brought such joy to your life. I've never watched the show in my life." But back in 2014, they referred to gravity as Mavity, and people are like, "Time travelers are real." It's hilarious. I love it. It's absolutely great.
So wait,
But
what's the context? Who referred to gravity as Mavity?
some random person on Twitter
Oh,
referred to
okay.
gravity as Mavity,
So
and
maybe it
now
was just a
everybody's
random typo that somebody found.
yeah, yeah. It was
That's funny.
awesome. It's awesome. But anyways.
Yeah, but no, that just gave me an abundance of joy when he said Mavity. But I did like too the gloves because that is one of the biggest thing that annoys me about any movie, TV show, whatever, when people have this uncanny ability to hold on to ledges. Like it just drives me insane because like in real life, you try to hang on to a ledge, you fall in
Yeah.
5 seconds,
Yep.
unless you're like a professional mountain climber. But in movies, everybody does it. They can hang on to stuff forever. So the fact that
Climb ladders.
yeah, the fact that he had a device that because he said I find myself hanging on off of stuff all the time, so I've made this device. I'm like, oh, perfect, thank you. Now everything else you do in this episode, your ability to do this stuff, now makes absolute sense. Whereas if they didn't kind of add that element, it would have felt a lot more cheesy. So I don't know. That really worked for me.
I mean, rope ladders are terrible to climb up. And so, yeah, you're dangling from a pirate ship in the sky on a rope ladder, and you're expecting both of them to climb up it. That's competing gravity, mavity, and like the ladder swinging all over the place. Yeah, you need some explanation. I love the idea that at some point between David Tennant and this episode with Gatwa, that he just decided and came up with and created these gloves. Yeah, it's I'm a fan. I'm a
And
fan.
where has he been since? Yeah, like has he gone on a bunch of different adventures by himself? That'll be something that we can uh think about, I guess, more. But did he go straight from
Right.
his last adventure to this, or I have a feeling there's probably some alone
Oh,
time there.
yeah, and most likely during one of those adventures, he was like, "Dang, I need gloves."
I need gloves and I need a companion.
Right.
Let me go
Yep.
find them.
Yes.
I like how he seems to be in awe of everything. Like this was like an Eccleston thing I remember specifically,
Yeah,
where he would just be like, "Oh, that's so fantastic!" Like he would just be impressed by things, even if the things were bad things,
yeah,
you know. And that kind of seems like a personality trait of Ncuti's Doctor as well, where he's like, "This is amazing, this is fantastic." Like the goblins and the ship, he's just like in awe of everything,
right. Yeah,
and almost like he's never seen anything like it before, even though he's seen things that are way
yeah,
crazier. But I
right.
do like that about this version of the Doctor.
Yeah, he's not jaded. Like this is another thing where it's like he's not jaded anymore by what he has seen, what he has experienced. All things are new. The language of ropes. That's the trying to figure out everything and how knots work and if I do this and how this he does seem like he's genuinely enjoying himself, genuinely fascinated by everything around him. The whole fascination with goblins. I mean, that's something we saw in the trailer, right? Like, oh
Mhm.
wow, like, but it's fun. It is part of his character.
Doesn't he say like this is amazing? And she's like, no, it's
Yes,
not.
they're gonna eat the
They're
baby.
about to eat the baby, and he's like he's concerned with how amazing it is. And
Yes,
he does have the whole scene where he's kind of putting together the idea of coincidence and what that's drawing the goblins, and it's actually going to
yeah,
make the baby more delicious because of the coincidences. And this is actually something that Russell T Davis says. He talks about it in some of the behind the scenes videos. I don't know if you watched the behind the scenes videos. I've actually
no, I
found
haven't
myself
for this
watching
one.
them more now.
Okay,
I used to never like to watch behind the scenes stuff, but I have found like with at least with this iteration of the Doctor with Tennant and this stuff that it kind of has helped me understand things a little bit more and maybe not question it as much. But he did say that the inclusion of the toy maker being kind of a more supernatural being, and that kind of goes against the grain with Doctor Who because Doctor Who is almost like there's always a scientific explanation. It's always been more of
yeah,
a science fiction, scientific show. And he said with the inclusion of the toy maker, it was almost his way of opening the door to more supernatural elements, things like
huh.
goblins, things like magic, coincidence, having to do with things, luck. And so I thought that was interesting because, you know, it may give us a little bit of insight into what to expect with some more of his stories. Because, yeah, I feel like the idea of goblins, it kind of feels a little Lord of the Rings and not Doctor Who, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess with that, I've come to expect it. At least as far as goblins go. To me, nothing is
Off limits.
off limits. Thank you. I feel like Doctor Who has kind of in the past set the precedent that yeah, there might be stories about things, but those stories are based in a reality of something. So there's stories written about goblins. People talk about goblins. Well, that's because goblins are actually real. Like they aren't the goblins that you see in the stories, but there are goblins. So this idea of goblins doesn't really strike me as all that strange. But when we do talk about the doctor being like, hey, the language of coincidence or how this all works, it's kind of new to me. Like I've never thought about this before. That I
Mhm.
do think is a fun, interesting way for him to approach things.
Yeah. So we get the infamous scene, I guess. We'd already been exposed to this with the goblin song, the singing, the baby about to be
Yeah.
eaten. You have these goblins, almost like a almost like a Star Wars kind of scene in the cantina, you know, this really cheesy kind of
Yeah.
alien singing, and um, the lady goblin is dressed up like a cabaret singer. I don't know. Like it was very interesting choice. We had already been prepared for it because we saw it in the preview scene.
Yep.
Did it hit different on this occasion because you were already prepared for it?
So
Uh,
the Goblin song, yeah, I think because there was so much about it for so long leading up to the Christmas special. It was like, yep, I'm prepared for it. This is fine. They fall through. What I was not expecting, what I was not prepared for was basically the doctor to be like, don't stop,
keep singing.
keep going. And then he joins in, and then Ruby, without missing a beat, all of a sudden she joins in. I guess there was that initial like seed planted as far as she's in a band.
Oh yeah.
So maybe
It would have
she
made
is
more
able to
sense maybe
just
if she was the singer.
Yeah, maybe a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, they kind of just like pick it up and go without missing anything, and then he pulls out the gloves and they rock it out of there. I have to say though, both of them did an incredible job. I mean, the fact that they got Gatwa to sing, I know that's something that he did in the Barbie movie, something that he's done a few other times. So hey, it's awesome that they were able to pull that out.
It was almost like Davies had this opportunity he didn't want to miss, where he was like, all right, I can't do a full-on episode or musical, a Doctor Who, not yet, but I can kind of slip it in as like almost this mini musical, like where you have the Goblin song, you have Ncuti sing, you have Ruby sing, and it's like it almost felt like those 7 minutes or however long that lasted was a musical. Like if you just
Yeah.
showed that to someone and said, "Oh, this is part of an episode," you'd be like, "Oh, it's a musical," because that felt like a musical.
Oh, yep. I
Um,
mean, I wouldn't put him past it or put it past him to have them show up on like a musical planet, and that's going to be like an entire episode.
yeah, I
This is
don't.
the second episode in a row that we've had a musical
Oh
number
yeah, you're
break
right.
out in the middle of the episode.
That is true.
And
I forgot about that.
we're going to see this more often than what I think we are expecting right now.
And we'll see in the trailer Jonathan Groff, who's already announced as a guest star, who is in the trailer for season one. He's a known Broadway
That's
music artist, so like who knows? Maybe they do a musical number in that too. So,
I'm telling you, we're gonna see a random musical number probably every single episode from this
oh
point
gosh,
forward.
I don't know how I feel about that. It didn't bother me in this one because it felt like okay, the Goblin song felt a little weird.
Yeah.
We've never seen anything like that in Doctor Who
No,
that
never.
I can remember. And then Ncuti singing and then Ruby singing caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting that. But it was like, okay, they're responding to and they're trying to distract to an
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
extent.
yeah.
So it kind of still made sense that they would sing, okay, the goblins sang, so we're going to sing too. And the goblins seemed to kind of be into it. So maybe the doctor kind of knows that about goblins. I don't know.
They like
That
music.
that singing can distract them. So it still didn't feel too, and they didn't if it had continued to happen throughout the episode, all of a sudden, if like Ruby's mom started singing a sad song when Ruby was gone, or then it would be like, all right, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But it was contained enough that I was like, okay, I'm cool with this. But what you're saying, it's got me a little scared because I don't want it to become a theme. I don't want Doctor Who to suddenly become this show where it's like, oh, well, there's at least one musical number in every episode.
Well, I mean, they've already said like you have Neil Patrick Harris, you have to do something. The Goblin song, maybe there's no explanation there, but again, they pull out the dude from Frozen and
Hamilton,
Hamilton,
yeah,
and it's like
you
we
almost
have
have to
him.
have him
We
sing.
have to do something. It
Maybe
will be
he'll
interesting to
be,
see what happens.
yeah, I could. I mean, if you make it make sense with the story.
Right.
I'm okay. But if you just break into song for no reason, that's weird. Unless you're a musical. I love musicals. I love Disney movies. I love musicals. I love
Yeah,
Broadway.
I
So
get
I'm
it.
fine with that kind of stuff. But it has to make sense for the story, and Doctor Who is not that type of thing.
Right, right,
So if Jonathan Groff breaks out in a song, I hope it's because his character is a performer, or
right.
something where that just makes sense for the story.
We'll see. We'll see. Either way, Gatwa and Ruby nailed it. Absolutely nailed it.
Yeah. So fast forwarding a little bit, so they get out of that scrape. The doctor kind of says, "Hey, the gloves, if you reverse them, they will, it pulls down."
Increased
Yeah,
mavity.
increase. Yeah, there you go. So they are able to pull that rope down and get out of there. Uh, they think they've kind of gotten away with it. Ruby's a little nervous, like, can they come back? Doctor's like, oh, everything's fine. He kind of goes into another room. There's some conversation. Did we talk about where does it? Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. So it gets to the point where he meets Ruby's mom
Yeah,
and they're there with Lulu. They're talking. They talk about Ruby, kind of giving a little bit of history of her adopting Ruby,
yeah,
and then they're talking about her being an orphan, and then the doctor is like, I'm an orphan too.
yeah,
And and then I'm like, oh yeah, it's such a parallel
yeah.
that he was left, like they were left by someone, and we still don't know
Right.
who. and then found by someone and essentially adopted and brought into a community. And I was like, oh yeah, was this like intentionally done by Russell, or was it just a kind of happy coincidence that like he already had in mind this character who was left at a church, and it kind of just happens to be a parallel with what Chibnall was doing with the doctor being left
Yeah.
by his people. I didn't even think about it. Even in the previews, you kind of knew what was coming. You saw the descriptions of the episodes. Didn't even dawn on me until he said,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm adopted too," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, that is crazy parallel."
Yeah. No, I agree. I have no idea whether this was intentional or not. The one thing I will say is that this is that one moment where you see Gatwa's doctor kind of like mellow,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
Like there's a softness, like a somberness to not only how he's approaching his own thoughts, but even in his approach to Ruby, right? Like it's no longer the up here, ecstatic, flamboyant doctor. It like calms down to a more even keel, like, isn't she incredible type of doctor. Just a very matter of fact.
Hmm.
Um, I think that does show us a little bit more about the highs and lows of the character. I still feel like he's going to be riding fairly high for the most part, but there does seem to be a little bit more of that. He does have something else going on inside of his head and not just like trauma-free doctor. He is
Yeah.
working through some stuff still.
And the actor has range. We saw
Oh
it.
yeah,
The
absolutely.
first scene we see of him is he's coming out of the TARDIS. Was he crying? Did he have a tear in his eye?
Yeah, he had a
Yeah.
tear.
Yeah, he's already, I mean, that's kind of how we see him, and then we see we see the ups and downs. Uh yeah, it kind of hit me. I love that part because when they're talking about her being adopted and he's like, "Oh, I'm adopted too. I recently found out," and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, here we go. Timeless child speculation. What if they would wipe it away? They've now shown multiple times that they're going to refer to it.
Yeah.
It's still something that's on his mind. It may not be the central story that he's trying to figure that out, but he's still thinking about it, and it
Yeah.
has a major parallel to his current companion. So I love that they interweaved it as
Yeah.
opposed to like ignored it.
Yep. Yep. Agreed. That's I think it's a solid call out.
Yeah, I almost skipped that, so I'm glad that because I was about to go to the next thing, but I was like, wait, I feel like there's something we're not talking about. But after all of that, suddenly, they have the goblin ship, I guess, comes down, there's a crack in the ceiling, all of that stuff, which they didn't connect to any kind of cracks that have happened in the past with Doctor Who, although,
No. No.
there was an opportunity there. Uh,
Right.
but Matt Smith didn't show up. But yeah, so you have that happen, but then you have Ruby disappear, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so the doctor quickly realizes something's not right. The everything's changed. The house has changed a bit. The her mom has completely changed. Her grandmother has changed.
Yeah.
Like that moment you were talking about, the which I didn't make the connection, but I'm glad you did. It's a wonderful life kind of moment where what would it be like if she never existed? And so now he's
Yeah.
realizing, oh crap, the goblins went back in time and now they're going to eat her. They have I guess essentially were successful in eating her because everything changed. So he's
Right.
now gone back before they did it so he can stop them.
Yeah. It's and that I mean earlier on in the episode she's like time travelers and he's like no they're not time travelers. They're messy with it. They're it's not as clean. Time travelers are incredible. All that
Yeah.
stuff. That's they did time travel though, right? Like they went back in time. They had a target. They grabbed that target from the past and it caused major issues moving forward. The doctor recognizes it though, jumps in the TARDIS, which there's that interaction with the neighbor.
Uh,
Another
Mrs.
huge
Flood.
thing that's teased out that crazy theories going on around about who she is and what
Hmm.
she is and
Let's save that. Let's save that.
oh yeah, I have nothing to add to that conversation, but we can definitely talk about it. Jumps in the TARDIS, shows back up at the church and battles the goblins at that point.
And they were kind of so their ability to time travel, like he was downplaying it, but it was
Yeah,
almost like when they had established that the idea of coincidence was kind of almost empowering them. And so
yeah,
I think as they're talking about like, oh, you're adopted, so am I.
yeah,
Coincidence. Oh, like,
right.
and it was like, and even Ruby was like, maybe we should stop talking about this because she
Yep.
knew. and all the coincidences and similarities was maybe what they were able to utilize because of that. Now, it doesn't make sense scientifically. Nothing a Doctor Who really does, but even in its own universe's rules, it feels
Right.
like this is a little bit outside of what you would expect. But they did kind of lay the groundwork for it.
Yeah. And whatever the case may be, the goblins were able to
Yeah,
accomplish their goal.
they went back there, and I guess now this was I got super excited when this was happening because I'm like, oh yeah, timey-wimey. Like this is awesome. I love when they do this kind of time travel, like what happened impacted something. So he's gonna go back and do something. You know, the Pandora I always come back to like the Pandorica stuff and like him leaving the
Yeah.
broom or like him, like just the different things like, oh, the note in the jacket. I don't know, I'm making stuff up, but I feel like that kind of stuff happened.
Yep. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and I was kind of like, oh, it's gonna be that kind of thing. There's gonna be some timey-wimey stuff and like and they did to an extent, but it was quick. Like he
It
got
was pretty
there.
straightforward.
Yeah, he got there. There wasn't a lot of buildup. He goes up, grabs the ladder and uses the last power he has in his gloves, I guess. Well, maybe not the
Yeah, he should
last,
have charged him at some point.
but yeah, and kind of pulls it down in a pretty gruesome death for a villain.
Oh yeah.
Although I
Yeah,
guess you
yeah,
can get
yeah.
away with it when it's just like a giant like puppet. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, he gets skewered on the steeple, which was pretty dark.
I mean, it is one of those things where again, it's not like they set up the goblins as like this big bad.
Mm,
They really are a pretty straightforward villain monster character in the show.
yeah,
The resolution of this is incredibly quick though, right? Like
yeah.
after the drama of like she's gone, oh no, what's going on? What happened? All these people are different. He literally jumps back in the past in enough time to see them take Ruby up into the ship, grabs the ladder, yanks it down, skewers everybody, catches Ruby, goes back down, lays her at the doorstep, and then he pieces out.
Yeah.
As
I
the mom is still walking away.
I feel like we've had in the past maybe Christmas specials that were longer, um, movie length maybe, like or at least a little bit longer.
Yeah,
This felt fast and
yeah,
maybe maybe they could have done more with this part of the story. I was like I said, I was super excited when it started to happen, and then when it ended, I was like, oh, that's it. Like he just went and kind of figured it out and came back. Like I thought there'd be more to it, and I was left wanting a little bit in that aspect of things. Um, Yeah, but let's talk about what he didn't do. So he went back, he saved
yep,
her
yep.
in a pretty, I don't know how much time. It's funny, like how long did it take her mom to walk away? Because she dropped the baby off, and then in the time between her dropping the baby off and her walking down the road, the doctor killed the goblins.
Right, yep. He shows up
So,
and yeah.
she was walking really slow, or maybe she just watched everything, and then when it resolved, she started to walk away again. But yeah, that was kind of interesting that she didn't walk a little faster. I mean, if I drop a baby off at a church and I don't want people to know it's me, I probably get myself out of there. I'm maybe even speed walking out of
Right,
there.
right, right, right. I mean, not that it would happen, but yes,
No, I
truth be
would
told,
never, you know.
you would get out of there fast.
But yeah, I'd run away after dropping that baby off. But yeah, she didn't run away.
No,
There's gonna be a ton of mystery around this character. We already know it.
yep,
Davies has already said that, if there's no speculation, it's gonna happen. Like this is a
yeah,
major story point that's
yeah,
gonna be, more revealed, I'm sure. But I was kind of wondering, like, what was the doctor's decision making here? Because he is there, he knows that she wants to know who her parents are. He has the opportunity. I mean, she's right there. He could just jog over to her and
yeah,
try to see her or talk to her, but he kind of makes the decision not to interfere, and I wonder why.
yeah. Do you think that the doctor doesn't know who the mom is? Do you
Yes.
think that for all the
Oh.
time that the doctor has spent following Ruby along, he hasn't already done some recon in regards to where she came from?
Hmm. I mean, that's a good question. My gut instinct is that no, he doesn't know either.
Okay.
It would make it more interesting if he did. And if he
Right.
found out later he knew all along, that could cause the strife we want.
That
If
could that
if
could
we're
cause a
a if we're
conflict.
asking for strife between the two characters, that could absolutely cause it if he kind of already knows and is just holding that information from her. Sounds
Yeah.
like something the Doctor would do.
It does. It does sound like at least previous iterations of the Doctor, what the previous iterations of the Doctor would do. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's
Interesting. I didn't really ponder it too much, but yeah, that'll be. I'm very excited about that, like the story potential.
right.
I'm
Yep.
glad that they gave us that. Now, the overall episode, was it my favorite? I actually, after rewatching it, the first, I feel like I maybe just got like a little bit of a shock when I watched it the first time, with
Right.
some of the stuff and be like, okay, getting used to these characters, getting used to even how he was portraying the Doctor was just like, okay,
Yep.
this is so different.
Yeah.
But after watching it a second time, I was like, okay, I actually had a lot of fun with that episode. I like what they're kind of setting up. I like the acting. I think the production value looked amazing.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I'm on board with all of that. So I'm ready for whatever's coming next. I definitely didn't have a negative kind of reaction to the episode. I kind of maybe enjoyed it more than some of the David Tennant stuff.
Yeah.
If you take out the nostalgia from the David Tennant stuff, they're not really my favorites. I'm not rewatching those anytime soon.
Yeah.
Um, so now, as an introduction to a Doctor, was this their best foot forward? Let's discuss.
Yeah. I think for me, and I'm just going to take a step back because you already gave your overall opinion of the episode. I think for me, what happened is my expectations were so very high, right? The expectations, the excitement of a Christmas special. And then you watch it, and there's so many things, not so many things. There are multiple points throughout the episode that you just take a stop and you're like, what am I watching? What just happened? And primarily when you get to the goblin song portion and the song and the dance, and if you have someone else watching it with you, and there's a little bit of
Yeah,
a moment where they're like, wait a second, what show is this? Like I thought this was something different. And there's that feeling of like, oh shoot, I probably should explain this or forewarned you or given you a heads up. So there was this expectation. That said, stepping back from the episode and giving it a little bit of time to sit, there are a heck of a lot more positive reflections on the episode, on the character, on the chemistry of the characters, to your to what you said, production value, like all of these things. There are so many high points of the episode, so many positives about the episode that I do think it was a really good episode of Doctor Who. Was it a good introduction? I don't know. I don't know if it was necessarily the best introduction of a doctor. And I don't know if it necessarily lives up to what I was expecting in regards to like, hey, new fans or people that you want to introduce to Doctor Who, this is where you start them. I don't know if I would be necessarily like, hey, this is gonna be the what's par for the course for the rest of the period. Now, maybe it is. Maybe this is what this new season of Doctor Who is going to be. Maybe we do have random characters breaking out in song here and there. Um, I don't know. Maybe it is going to be the best introduction. But for me, it's like, I might start you elsewhere for now.
right. Like when I think of a good Doctor introduction, I think of 11th Hour.
Yep.
I
Yep.
probably still put it down as my favorite episode of all time, Doctor Who. It's a great introduction. It gives us all the information we need about him. It even gives us a recap
Yeah.
in some
Yeah.
ways. We get to
Yeah.
see you know, him pick out his outfit. We get to see the doctor monologue on the rooftop and, the kind of flashbacks to all the different faces. And you're kind of like, oh, I know what this show is about. It kind of gets you into it. So if I ever told someone to watch Doctor Who and they've never seen it before and they needed a good kind of like, hey, what's a good starting point? That's this episode I would always point them toward. I would
Yeah.
love to hear people, anyone that listens to our show that thinks that that's a really bad advice. I would love to hear your reasons why. Uh, but yeah, I think this one is not that, right? Like we
Yeah.
said, the psychic paper was used, but there really wasn't much of an explanation. We did get the TARDIS kind of reveal, but not really. Like she seemed amazed by it,
Yeah.
but we don't know anything about it. And they didn't really talk about his history. The word Gallifrey never was uttered, I don't believe.
No.
I don't think. I'm an alien from Gallifrey. You know, I regenerate. I have the psychic paper. The TARDIS is bigger on the inside. I travel through time. Like, I feel like there's just these things that when you have an introduction, you want a new audience to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
You kind of have to fit it in somewhere. Even if it was just kind of a quick primer at the very beginning where, he did that voiceover and he could say, I'm a Time Lord who found out he was adopted and I've had this many faces or maybe more, but I don't know. And like they could have had like this scripted 30-second intro and now I
Yeah.
found this girl who was left, like boom, you have it what you need. But
Yeah.
I feel like this episode doesn't fulfill that. So if you showed this to someone who's never seen Doctor Who, has no idea what it is, and said, "Hey, this is a new show I want you to watch," they're like, "Okay, that was fun, but I'm kind of confused. I don't really know
Right.
what's he all about. Like, what is that time machine he's in? Like, where did it come from? Like, it does feel like now maybe we get that in episode two or episode
Yeah.
one of season one. Maybe that's where
Yep.
they save it for, because this is just a special, and so maybe they want that to be the onboarding point. But yeah, I felt like this wouldn't be a good introduction. Plus, not even to say there's a music in it, there's a weird
Yeah.
goblin scene, there's a, where it's kind of like some stuff that may be off-putting to someone who doesn't already have the history and understanding that Doctor Who is weird.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
that they'd be like, okay, that was fun. The actors were good, but it was kind of dumb too, like that. I could see that being the reaction to someone I try to present this to.
Right. I mean, we've come to expect some level of campiness when it comes to different episodes, right? Like even in some of the historical episodes, you go back to the Agatha Christie episode and you have the um
Giant wasp.
giant wasp. It's like that, even in something that is like period piece, seriously dressed, not a lot weird that can go on. You have this giant CGI wasp that's flying around and like attacking people. That's
Yeah.
We expect some level of campiness when you're introducing someone to an episode, though. You want that campiness to slowly ramp up, right? Like, and that's why I think 11th hour
Yeah.
is a great introduction because that level of campiness is very, very low in that episode. You do have that like extra
The
the sentient
floating
being,
eyeball.
right?
Yeah.
You have that, but by that point in time, you also have this incredible monologue going on at the exact same time that just
Mhm.
like amps up that the moment for you. The main character is speaking, and you can latch onto that. This episode, I feel like that Goblin song, it takes that campiness, especially since the Doctor and Ruby join in and saying you
Mhm.
have to already be past a certain threshold to be like, okay, wasn't expecting it, but I understand what we're doing. I understand this character, the show. As an introduction, though, that's a really hard threshold to cross with someone right away.
Yes, definitely. And yeah, and even when we talk about 11th hour and Smith, even his like declaration that I'm the doctor,
Yeah,
it's this moment of like triumph where he's like he just defeated the villain, this kind of villain that was like pretty intimidating, issue that he had, and he defeats them. He's like introducing himself like, "Hey, guess what? I'm the doctor. Run." Like
yeah,
I don't know, maybe they feel like the current Doctor doesn't need that kind of moment. Maybe it's just a different thing they're aiming for. But for me as a viewer, that was kind of like, all right, they just established this dude is BA and like, I'm on
yep,
board with this. Whereas Ncuti has that moment where she opens the TARDIS and he's standing up there and he looks awesome. He's got his cool outfit on. I mean, he definitely looks awesome. Like
yeah,
he is a cool character. But he just says, I'm the doctor.
yeah,
And it's like almost like, okay, cool, but I don't know, you just beat some kind of like silly goblins. Like, all right,
right,
let's earn that confidence a little
yeah,
bit. And I don't know, I just didn't feel like he had that moment that I would like to see kind of with an introduction of a new doctor.
yeah. No, it will be. I will be interested to know if like come episode one of season one, if we get a Ruby voiceover. Like I've been traveling with the Doctor for a while. He's an alien from Gallifrey, time traveler. I
Yeah.
was like, we get a different voiceover, but from Ruby's perspective, because I do feel like we didn't get that explanation for her of who he is. And I don't know if we're going to get that in the first episode. I feel like there's going to be some blank space that we're going to have to fill in with a voiceover
Hmm.
from Ruby, probably explaining. He told me he was a doctor, and then I learned all this other stuff about him.
Well, maybe that's why they called this Special Four, because
Maybe,
this isn't the beginning.
yeah,
This is the end of, kind of the four specials. and then they're going to have more of a kind of true introduction of all the cool stuff that we're expecting in episode one of season
Yeah.
one of Doctor
Season
Who,
one.
the third era. No, yeah, what we
Yeah,
call, yeah, I guess.
it is.
We
It's the
kind of we
Disney
kind of
era.
joked around about this. If this is like we always talk about the classic era, then New Who, or I call it the modern era when I talk about it a lot. And then now it's almost like this new, third era that's starting, and we were like, what do we call it? The Disney era? Like it almost seems condescending a little bit, but
Yeah.
it kind of makes sense.
It's gonna be the Bad Wolf era, right? Because this is the era that Bad Wolf Studio has taken over part of the production of Doctor Who.
That could
That's
be
what we're gonna call
confusing.
it.
That could be confusing because
I know, right?
the Bad Wolf storyline
Started in
was a long
yeah,
time ago.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
But
yeah. So, anything else about kind of the episode itself?
yeah, I mean we got Mrs. Flood.
Oh, Mrs.
We got
Flood, yeah,
we got Mrs. Flood who at the end breaks through the fourth wall, looks at the camera and says, "Have you never seen a TARDIS before?" Um,
and Winks.
and winks.
Yeah,
I
so there,
mean,
she's somebody, right?
oh yeah, I
I
mean
know
she
there's
was
theories.
she was all about the doctor going to the big blue box. That's she knew who he was. Even though earlier on in the episode she didn't know why the
Yeah.
TARDIS was on the sidewalk,
Yeah, they
but
definitely it changed tone because when you first introduced to her, she just seems like a someone living there that's ticked off that the box is in the way.
yeah,
And so they don't tip
yep,
their hand early. But then kind of later on when he comes out and he's leaving, I did think just to kind of wrap it up with her with Ruby and the doctor, I did think that the her realization when she's in the kitchen with her mom and she's
yeah,
realizing that he's for one he's leaving.
yeah.
And then she's like, wait, like, and then she's kind of putting it all together. Wait, like he's a time traveler. Like how was he able to do all this stuff? And when was, he had talked about
Houdini.
Houdini and like, oh, well, wasn't that in the past? And like, oh, he went back. And so she's kind of putting it all together, like, oh, he's a time traveler. Also, like, I really like him. He's a cool dude, and I just want to hang out with him.
Yeah,
So she kind of has this moment of realization and runs out there to find him. And you think he's already left, but then the TARDIS is still there and the door cracks open. I thought it was really touching. It was a cool little moment, I think, for those characters, for her
yeah.
to kind of join him on his adventures. I thought they did that really well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that she's like, with everything going on, I haven't had time to actually stop and think about some things that he said.
Right. Yeah.
It worked out perfectly. Solid
But
moment.
but in that, when he was initially kind of leaving and then he has the interaction with Mrs. Flood, and then that's when you kind of like, oh wait, she actually feels like she kind of knows some things and she's not surprised by the fact that he has this time machine kind of thing. And then she winks. So you're like, okay, that was their way of telling us she's important or she knows or she's going to be connected to something or she's someone that maybe has traveled with him before. Like there's all kinds of possibilities. I know there's the internet theories, and you know how much I love internet theories. But one of the big ones I heard is, oh, it's actually a future version of Ruby.
Yeah.
I hope it's not that, but yeah, the speculation abounds.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it is one of those things, right? Like the progression of the episode where Mrs. Flood is a little bit confused about what the TARDIS is, what the box is, and then at one point the TARDIS disappears and she drops her groceries, so she's surprised by it then. It seems like progressively through the episode, she's getting more and more used to it. Who knows? Maybe she had an opportunity to run inside and Google police box disappearing, and there's all those. What was it? Eccleston's first or second episode, where it's like the man in the Titanic, and there's a website that documents his journey through time as Eccleston appears in all the pictures. Maybe she Googled and found some internet insight into TARDISes and police boxes, and then she's just sitting watching it the entire time. Um, I don't know. It will be interesting to see what they do with her, because I doubt that. I don't know. Surely she's going to show up in other episodes. Ruby's going to come back and visit her mom. Going to check in on Lulu Bell. She's gonna
Yeah,
show back up in other episodes.
yeah, I think so.
Fun times ahead.
All right, well, thanks, Adam, for I know you didn't get to see my expressive eyes this entire
I,
time with
I
my
was thinking it's a statement. You should keep it on moving forward.
the sunglasses. Yeah, I know. I kind of like the fact it's covering my dark circles. It kind of makes me look younger, maybe. So maybe I'll just stick with the sunglasses as the look going forward.
Just
But
roll with it.
yeah. But thanks for jumping on here and talking Doctor Who with me, man. It's always a great time.
Oh, absolutely. Same, same.
All right. Until next time.
Love the glove, Ruby. Love the glove.